What I would like to cover today is the concept on workload management, right? Help us understand what options we have to speed up system, right? After we tried everything. So, how basically, system maintains its workload. Now, let's look at, let's try to understand. Right. Workload is nothing but a job, right? Workload might look like a very fancy name, right? But workload is nothing but a job. What is a job? Job is nothing but a sequence of instructions. When I say workload management, it's nothing but how do I manage those jobs? You submit your sequence of instructions. I submit my sequence of instructions. Someone else will submit his or her own sequence of instructions. How Netezza maintains all those jobs coming simultaneously? Because the resources are limited, right? You have only, like, for example, if I talk about TwinFin, you have only 96 disks. Or Striper, you got only 240 disks. You can't increase that, right? But number of jobs can increase or decrease. But amount of resources you have are fixed, right? So within the available resources, how best you can do this job management. Typically, these jobs are divided into two types. One is user initiated. For example, the SQL query you submit, the backup request you submit, the remote request you submit. Second one is system initiated jobs. For example, Netezza system submits on its own. For example, when a disk fails, the disk regeneration is one example. Now, which component in Netezza is responsible for this workload management? Which component in Netezza is responsible for this workload management? It's not one component that is responsible for it, right? It's a four components. Together we call it as a scheduler. Four components together we call it as a scheduler. This guy is responsible for the workload management. Now let me open another diagram to help you understand where exactly the scheduler is. Okay, you remember this diagram? We have Netezza host, high speed network, yes blades, and I have a disk enclosures. The moment someone submits a query, it first hits Netezza host. It first hits Netezza host. The query is compiled, right? If query already exists in object cache, it is taken. Then optimizer comes into picture. Optimizer's responsibility is to divide the query into smaller snippets. Now those snippets are given to scheduler. Now the scheduler's responsibility is how these two resources are loaded based upon the load, based upon the user's priority, schedule those snippets with these hardware components, right? So this scheduler might look like a single component, but it is not. It is four different schedulers. What are those four different schedulers we have? The first one is a gatekeeper. Second one is a GRA scheduler. Third one is a snippet scheduler. Fourth one is a resource scheduler. Gatekeeper, GRA scheduler, Snippet scheduler. They sit on Netezza host. They sit here. Gatekeeper, GRA scheduler, Snippet scheduler, those three sit here. But the resource scheduler sits on S-plates. Right? Here, the scheduler specifies that, okay, I'm sending you the snippet with XYZ importance, saying that you need to give this resource like 20 CPU cycles for every second or 50 disk reads for every second. The scheduler might instruct you with that instructions, right? So basically you have only these three resources, right? What are the major three resources we have? I have my CPU, I have IO, I have memory. CPU is measured in cycles, input or output is measured in reads. Of course, memory is amount of memory allocated. Now I might have snippet. Let's say I have snippet 1, snippet 2. I say that for every second give this guy 10 CPU cycles. For every second give this guy only 4 CPU cycles. And give this guy 50 disk reads per second. Give this guy only 30 disk reads. So allocate 1 GB memory and allocate this guy 0.5 GB memory. These are the instructions from the scheduler. Based upon the priority you have, the scheduler here. What are those three schedulers we have there at a host? Gatekeeper, GRA, Snippet. By the time you come out of Gatekeeper, then you go to GRA, then you go to Snippet. Then you go to Snippet. You come out with instructions such as this. Now the same instructions will be passed to resource scheduler, which is sitting on S-plate. Now this is where your actual allocation of resources happen. That's why you have this name called resource scheduler. This is where the actual allocation of resources. Till this point, these three, by the time you walk out of these three schedulers, it's only that a suggestion based upon user's priority, group's priority. Your system only suggests, okay, this is how we should give this guy priority. This snippet is important to me, right? Because the user is very important to me. Because the user is coming up with a very high resource request, or user has a default resources as very high. So this is only suggestion here, but the actual resource allocation happens here on the resource scheduler. We will try to understand each one of it. Before we understand each one of it, it's important for us to understand some terminology. So what is the terminology? Let's look at here. The first one is concurrent jobs, right? How many simultaneous jobs I can submit in Netezza system? The answer is 48. You can submit million jobs at the same time, but only 48 can be active at any time. I repeat, you can submit million jobs, but only 48 would be sharing those available system resources. So how can I change that parameter, right? This is a parameter by default given by Netezza system, so we need to be very careful before we change it, right? That means when I say it's a 48 number, the 48 will share all the available resources. What are available resources? You have disk, you have memory, you have CPU cycles. So if you reduce it to 24, more resources, right? for 24 jobs, but the queue might increase. But where to change this parameter is, this is a host level parameter and this is a variable which holds this value. This is a host level parameter. Now let me show you that once. So I can see all those parameters using ng system show registry. If I grep for GRA max concurrent,
GK max concurrent.
or it should be a GRA. I think I had a mistake there.
Okay.
It's a GRA. It's a GRA max concurrent. The GRA max concurrent is stands for guaranteed resource allocation. So the maximum I can have is 48. If I have to change this parameter, changing is very easy. To change any of these parameters, you have to put your system in paused state. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So you see the steps? To change this parameter, we have to put our system in a paused state. Then we have to change this parameter. Then we have to bring your system back to resume. Let's say like it will come back to online state. So the only place when you change this Postgre configuration file, right? This here. Only when you change something in this Postgre configuration file, you have to bounce your instance. For remaining parameters, at a host level or a system level or a system manager level, you don't have to bounce your instance. One example is the other day we tried to enable multiple schema support, right? So that's one.
And even the backups also we have to, restart, right, Ravi? Like the one yesterday you did, for that we restarted, right?
Oh, for history configuration setting. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes. So that feature is not enabled by default. ng data hist was the directory I was talking about. You remember yesterday it was not found.
Yeah.
We'll create 3 directories: address, staging, and loading. So the moment I say ngsql -db system -user Ravi -password, it's authentication failure, right? So this is what I was talking about. It will immediately go and hit in. It has to write that information in. What is the database? HistDB. What are the display tables? When I say select start from, it's nothing. It just writes that information in this table. I need to put the quotation. So it's not yet loaded. It will load. So the moment that thing happens, so there is a backend process called ALC. Yeah, it will load it into staging area. Staging area loads the data into various tables. You look at here, ALC underscore FA. FA stands for failed authentication. It just collects the data in the format it needs. This is the record for the error I have just made, right? So it just loads this data into the table, nothing else it does. Now ALC app
So
converts whatever the failed authentication I made into a record. That's it. Go ahead. Srini, you're asking something.
no, I was just wondering like why it has created so many records. Maybe because everything on September 28th itself. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe probably.
because you enabled query, right?
Yeah.
So what are these two letters have some short code, query plan.
Okay.
It talks about various queries it ran in the backend. All that information also it stores. Query
Okay.
log or query epilogue and all that information. These are all the various queries it created. It all just happened now or today. Right. Now let's look at, still we have that. Now this responsibility is to load this to loading. It's not yet loaded to loading. So it should go to loading from here. From loading it will load it into the tables.
History.
History tables. Nothing else. It's a very simple process. The important thing is just to collect the data such a way that the ALC loader can load it. So, right. So for this feature to be working, we have to bounce because this has to create two important directories, ng data hist. This directory was not there yesterday. Right. So that's the first thing we need to know about. The important thing is on concurrent jobs, the maximum we can run. Next important thing is
So,
load sharing tool.
Ravi, maximum 48%, right?
No, you can,
Maximum 40.
no, that, yeah, by default it's maximum 48, but you can set it to
Uh-huh.
96 or you can set it to 500. Anything.
Okay.
But the point is, if you keep on increasing, it is like number of children you have, right? Let's say you own 10 crore and you have 4 kids. What happens? Your 4 kids will share the 10 crore. What happens if you
Yeah.
have only 2 kids? Yes, the 2 kids share 10 crore, but the amount of share each kid gets is more if you have less kids,
Okay.
right? This is the point I'm saying.
Right.
It's the same thing here too. If you have less number of a job sharing the resources, each job will get more number of resources. What do I mean by resources? This is nothing else. So instead of giving you 50 disk reads, if I give you 500 disk reads per second, you will be running faster by 10 times. Then this kind of point out. So that's exactly the same concept there. Instead of right, me having like 4 kids, if I have only 2 kids, the amount of share each kid gets is doubled, right? Exactly the same.
Right.
So depends upon the parameters, right? In few environments, you might have to have it at like 20, 24, 25. They might be happy with whatever, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes if you have more OLTP kind of a load, right? You need to have this number at a bigger number. So that's the first point to know before we get into the concept of understanding this principle. Second one is resource sharing groups, which in short are called RSGs. Before we understand this, let me go back and revisit the groups concept one more time. I'll forget about starting about yeah, create group. You remember this create group syntax? Create group.
Yeah, Ravi.
Group is like a role. There is no separate concept as a role. Group is equivalent to role here. I create a group. I can associate a group with a system group. At a group level, I can say this is the number of roles every user can select. This is a session timeout. This is a query timeout. I have certain properties I can specify it here, right? So in these, few important properties are what is the priority of user. If let's say I defined a user group as Indian, I said Srini and Ravi are part of that group, right? So what is the priority of these users, right? I say that by default, the various priorities of a users, or I can have a user as a critical, I can classify it as a high, normal, or low use. None is by default normal. So I can classify Srini as a high user, Ravi as a normal user. So when I say high, you will get more number of resources. For example, 8 resources critical gets, then high gets 4 resources, normal gets 2, and low gets 1. When there is a competition between these priority of the users, this is how they share resources. For example, Srini and Ravi would like to share resources. For example, what do I mean by resources? There are 96 disks I have. That means at any second, I can have 96 disk reads. When there is a competition to share these 96 disk reads between Srini and Ravi, how they will share? Little math. Right? How they share? So high means 4, normal means 2. 96 disk reads means they will share 96. So this is how Srini gets. Srini gets out of the 96 disks reads, he has
20.
4 by 6. 4 out totally it has 4 by 2, right? It's out of 6 share, he needs to share 4. So how much Ravi gets? 2 by 6. They share these 96 resources in the form of 4 by 6 and this guy will share in the form of 2 by 6. So we calculate that.
64 and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something on that. 64 and 26, 22, 32. Right. At every second, at every movement, it's not even a second. Right? Srini will get 964 disk reads, but Ravi gets only 32. But see, both are from the same group, ETL group. Right? But what if Srinivasa joins? And he also joins as a high priority user. Right? So those priorities are defined here. So what is the default priority? Now there is some other concept called maximum priority. What do I mean by maximum priority is I can create a user like this. Create user Srini, default priority as high. Maybe I can create this guy Ravi. Default priority normal, max priority as high. The point is, by default Ravi is only normal user. But if none of the other guys sharing the system resources, he can get promoted till high. You see what I'm saying? Ravi by default is normal only. But if none of the other guys are using the system, if still there is a scope to use it, he can get promoted till high priority. Okay. So then you can add a users to group like this. But here comes resource minimum and resource maximum, the important things for our workload management. When I create a group, I can say that resource minimum, allocate this group 80% of system resources. Or I can say allocate this group 20% of system resources. Don't get confused with the resources you allocated to user. I should have waited in explaining this, but never mind. But let me talk on this resource minimum and resource maximum. Minimum, resource maximum. Right? When I create a group, for example, like ETL, I can say that allocate this group 60% of resources. See, I can specify access time here. Right? During 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's where my ETL window runs. During that time, allocate this group 80% of system resources. Minimum. When nothing else running on the system, the group can go till 90%. Right? You see what I'm saying? This group, whoever comes from this group, who are the users from this group? Srini, Ravi, Srinivasa. These guys will get 80% of entire system. If at the same time there is something from a OBIE coming, from OBIE, let's say Tammy is part of it, Mike is part of it, they get only remaining resources. So, but please note that this 80% has to be shared by these three guys. How do they share? Based upon the priority of users. We'll talk about it. Let me not confuse you. Let me go back to the slides once. The point I'm trying to make here is you have two types of groups. The normal groups that you create without giving resource minimum and resource maximum. If I just create a group 1, this is called normal group. This is also called as non-resource sharing group. But whereas when I create a group such as ETL, resource minimum is 60, resource maximum is 80. Create group name, wait is crying. Spelling. Right. So when I create a group like ETL, like this resource minimum and resource maximum, This is resource sharing group. So in short, what I am saying is I have RSG versus non-RSG. In a fair share, we are trying to understand what is RSG. In a fair sharing model, like I said, the example of my children. If I have two kids, each kid will get equal priority. Each job gets equal percentage of available system resources. If I'm just under a fair share model, each job needs to get equal percentage. But do we live in a fair sharing model, right? If Srini submits a job and if Srini company CEO submits a job, who needs to get priority more? I can't say to my CEO that you have to get equal priority as me, right? No. When my CEO logs in or CFO logs into my dashboards and running something, that means it's very critical for the business. Maybe side down, right? Maybe they want to get something quickly for the end users, right? So, but it's not always a fair sharing model in business. You have to have a priority users. For example, if two jobs in the system, each should get 50% of resources. If 20 jobs, each gets 1 by 20th. But fair sharing model is not always acceptable. Sometime we might have to finish a priority job faster by allocating more resources. Like if my CEO logs in, or if a backup is running slow and it's trying to come into the business window, right? We can specify these resource percentages at a group's level. If a backup job is falling every day into the resources, business window, how can I speed that up? Right? If an incremental job is falling into the business, how can I speed that up? Right? Whoever is initiating the backups, make sure that guy is part of a group which has a very good number of resources allocated. We can specify those resource percentages at group level as shown in next slide. Resource minimum and resource maximum. I can display the groups using \DZ. Here I'm creating a group called reports with minimum 30 and maximum 70. \DZ will show reports as 30 here and 70. Public is the only exception which has a minimum 20 and maximum 100. Public is the by default resource sharing group. Now let's try to understand minimum resource percentage and maximum resource percentage. So what are these I'm talking about? Resource minimum. What do I mean by resource minimum? Smallest percentage of available system resources that the group should receive when other groups are also using the system. If a group has a resource minimum of 0 points, then it's not a resource sharing group. So we have two types of groups, RSGs and non-RSGs. Non-resource sharing groups are typically used for access control management, such as creating new users, granting privileges. Maximum resource percentage is nothing but largest percentage of available system resources. Why I keep highlighting these available system resources in bold, right? You need to understand that. That's a tricky thing. To understand that, what I am saying is I am assuming 4 groups I have. I'm assuming I have 4 groups. So let me name these groups in a much decent way. Let's say I have ETL as one group, BI as another group. Now what other groups we can have it?
Reporting.
Yeah, BI comes under, yeah, maybe I can say leadership as another group. Before we go to leadership, we can have
Business.
yeah, maybe business users. I say leadership. Leadership should get the maximum. Leadership. I say BI. Right. Now what I'm saying here is I have 100% available resources. So I have defined 4 groups in my system: ETL, leadership, business, and BI. They each share 25, 35, 30, and 10. Right? So 25 plus 35 plus 30 plus 10 is 100. When all 4 groups are active, what do? They share 100% of resources in this ratio: 25, 35, 30, and 10. For example, from ETL, someone is submitting a ETL job. From leadership, a senior person is actively working on a dashboard. Business, so someone logged in and doing something. BI, so one of our internal users are working on it, right? So when all 4 are active, all 4 groups are actively doing something on the system, they share resources in this way. But that's where comes the problem. What if there is a 5th group also in the system? I can't restrict only system for 4 groups or 5 groups or 10 groups, right? There is no limit on the groups I can create. What if there is a 5th group as below and users from all 5 groups are active at the same time? So the 5th group is coming like this, saying that I want minimum 20. Maximum I can go till is 60 if no one else is using the system. Now what to do? I have only 100% of resources. These are already sharing it 100%. But this guy is coming saying that I want 20. So that's where the concept of available system resources. Even though you request for 25, but I can't give you 25. I can't give you 25. Why? Because the requested is for 120. So what I do is 25 by 120 is I'll only give you 20.8% of available system resources. So that's what we do here. You see what I'm saying? So even though ETL is requesting 25 minimum resources, but the request at that point in time is for 120. It's more than what I have. So I can only give you only 20.8% of available resources. Because I have to satisfy all 5 groups. It's not that I'll only satisfy these 4. Any questions till this point? Srinivasa, you are okay too? Okay.
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah. But what's reality here? In reality, it's not groups that submit jobs. It's not that ETL group will log in and submit the jobs. No, it's a people within this group submits the jobs, right? When I say ETL and I say three users are part of ETL group, for example, Srini, Ravi, and Srinivasa, it's not that ETL group logs in and submits it. No, it's people like you and I logs in and submit the jobs, right? But now comes the question. I say that ETL shares 25% or 20.8% of resources. What if we three are submitting the jobs? You logged in and I logged in. Do we each get 20.8 or are we going to share only 20.8 between both of us? Well, this is what I'm saying. When I say ETL gets 20.8% of resources, right? And Ravi from ETL and Srini from ETL are both logged in and submitting the job. What happens? So is this scenario like this? Ravi gets 20.8, Srini gets 20.8, or is it scenario 2? Ravi gets 10.4, Srini gets 10.4. So the first scenario is ruled out. This is not going to happen. It's not that you get 20% and I get 20%. No, because we have to share whatever our group has, right? It's like I have two children. The two children maximum get is whatever I have, right? They can't go
For the
beyond
parents.
what I have. But again here, I can show partiality here, but I might not go beyond 20.8%, but I can show partiality between these two resources here. So when I define Ravi as priority user, we define Ravi as a normal user, Srini as high priority user. So that means for every 4 resources this guy gets 2 resources. So now Srini gets, this is a scenario 3. Now Srini gets out of 20.8 resources 2 by 6. Sorry, 4 by 6. Ravi gets out of 20.8 resources 2 by 6. So 13.87, 6.93. This is how we both share the resources. At a group level it is fixed. First it is decided at a group level, right? How much, so right now like 5 groups are active, how much each group should get. Inside the group, if there are more than one user, how the users will share. Again, that is decided based upon user level priority. So if Srini is a high priority user and Ravi is a normal user, when there is a conflict, so they share like this. For every 14 resources you get, I'll almost get like 7 resources. Now where do you decide or where do you define this is while you creating a group, saying that what is your default priority while creating a user. With the create user syntax, you can define it. Okay. Please note that this is how the priority works. First, it is decided at a group level based upon your resource minimum and resource maximum. Once the group level allocations happen, right, this is how it works, right? You look at yearly appraisals. What happens? You know, if we come under financial sector, the financial vertical get okay, right? I can give you only $1 million for all your appraisals this year. Under financials, you might have like 15, 20 different projects. Now again, each project gets its own share, right? Again, under each project, let's say the project I work might have like 15 different employees. We have to share whatever my project gets. I can't go beyond, right? Again, within my project, depending upon the ratings, each one gets their own share of increase, right? That's exactly the same concept here. You have resource minimum and resource maximum decided at a group level. Within the group, depending upon the number of employees we have, number of resources and their priority, the allocation happens, right? That's what I mean by, in reality, it's not groups that submit jobs. It's users inside these groups submit jobs to Netezza.
So
Mhm.
Ravi, I have a question actually. So in a group, Ravi and Srini, so maximum allocation for the group is like 20.8%.
Right.
So at this point of time, we do not have any user logged in. Like for example, like you have, we are from ETL, so there are like other business management, everything. Like no one is logged in.
Right.
So and also Srini is also not logged in. So when Ravi is only logged in, he will, I mean, maximum you might have specified like 100%. So when you say minimum is like, I mean, your priority is normal or maybe
No,
so
no,
do you get at max 20.8 or you gonna get whatever you specify max, you're gonna get that?
no. You're mixing two things. Okay, let's start one more time. So you initially said there is no one from
Uh,
logged in.
yeah, in ETL only Ravi is logged in
Oh, in ETL
and
only.
no,
Okay.
yeah, and no one is logged in any other group. So at this point of time only Ravi is logged in.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
so Ravi is gonna get the maximum of that group, or is it like maximum of whatever it is assigned? You know.
Yeah. Basic rule. Ravi is going to get maximum of ETL group. Now, what is maximum of ETL group? Right? At any point, you can't go beyond your ETL group maximum. But will that maximum of ETL can exist dynamically because no other groups are in the system? What is the maximum of ETL? That is decided by resource minimum, resource maximum. If I go back here in this, in the ETL group, the minimum is 25. The maximum I specified here is 75, 70. If none of the other guys are using it, you can scale up till 70.
Okay, got it.
It's you won't limit it like 25% here because it's not 20.8 is no more scenario here because none of the other groups. You don't just limit at 25, your group will scale up to 70. If your group scales up to 70, your only user Ravi who logged in will also get 70% of resources.
Okay, it's more clear, Ravi, now.
Yeah. Now, if other users, if other groups are coming up, groups is nothing but like maybe Tammy logged in and trying to submit something. So the priority switches accordingly.
So when someone logged in, like they have also like started running some queries or so. So I mean it might be internal question. I mean internal like how it behaves. Like is it like how it transition from that 70% to 20%?
Yeah. So yeah, I asked that question many times to myself, and I have other students who also ask me the same thing. But the answer is I don't know because I had Netezza never published their internals. So, but only my guess is based upon my understanding of the schedulers, right? So for that point in time, right? No, it's not that the moment you request it immediately in that split second it will give you. No, it wait for the next split second and the scheduler decides it. So that might take like there is might initially like 2 or 3 seconds lag in giving you the
Okay.
priority. because it has to take it from other resources and do it for you. But yeah, but
Yeah.
they're just my guess only, man. So I don't know
Okay.
beyond that.
And maybe it also depends on what is the current state of those
Jobs running.
because yeah.
Yeah, irrespective of it, if the scheduler says that I want these many CPU cycles for it, yeah, more number of CPU cycles the current job is using will reduce. But if you're
Okay.
halfway through it, I think that might take. It's like this, right? For example, if I running a job called addition of two numbers, for example, so addition of two numbers. So you might need 100 CPU cycles plus 1000 disk reads plus 100 MB memory to process this job, right? So if you are halfway through it, every second I am giving you like 50 CPU cycles. For example, every second I'm giving you 50 CPU cycles, right? So that means you just need 2 seconds. But after you complete 1 second, if someone is coming and taking your priority, so then every second you get only 10 CPU cycles. I think it might happen at a split second level. That's what my guess is.
Okay.
Beyond that, I don't know.
Okay.
Right, so
Thanks, Ravi.
moving on. So these are the things like I'm creating a user. While creating the user itself, I can put this guy in a resource group. But the only difference between non-resource groups and groups here is a user can be part of more than one non-resource sharing group. I can be part of only public is the exception. I can be part of multiple groups. But when I have a resource sharing groups, I can be part of only one group. A user cannot be part of both ETL group and BI group. No, he can or she can be part of only one group. So I can see that information using backslash d capital G small r. So a user is part of only one resource sharing group. Admin user is part of underscore admin underscore resource group by default. Right. Underscore admin underscore resource sharing group by default. But please note that please don't use admin to run any of the regular jobs, because whenever admin logs in, by default admin gets 50% of available system resources, no matter the system load. That's how that resource sharing group is designed. You see what I'm saying? That's why collecting the history, they made mandatory that don't use admin, because admin is a priority user. Whenever admin logs in and runs a report, he gets 50% of available system resources. So when someone complaining you that okay, my job is running slow and admin can run it faster, right? You are not supposed to test with admin.
Okay.
If admin is able to run faster, that means it's a resourcing problem. Now, learning all these, let's go back to our original discussion. What is our original discussion? We have 4 schedulers. What are they? 3 are running at a host, 1 is at a S-blade. The first one is Gatekeeper, Guaranteed Resource Scheduler, Snippet Scheduler. These first 3 runs on Netezza host, right? In this Gatekeeper is by default off. Gatekeeper is by default off. So it's not on. By default, this gate is open. Anyone can come through it. So that means the immediate gate we need to satisfy here is, get pass is GRA scheduler. Now what this GRA scheduler does is, what are the concepts we learned so far, like allocating resources based upon resource sharing groups minimum and maximum? That exactly happens here. The whole calculations happens in this GRA, right? Allocates resources based upon RSG's minimum and maximum percentages. The actual allocation does not happen here. The GRA just says that whatever we calculated, like I have 4 groups, I have 5 groups. In each group, this is the guy coming and no one else is running, only Ravi is running the job, how much to give. All such calculations happen in GRA. And it allocates some priority to it. Right. One more important parameter I have here is a job maximum. At a group level, I can specify job maximum saying that if I say 4, even though that group has like 10 different users, even though the group has 10 different users, you can't submit more than 4 jobs. So that's the one more restriction. So based upon all of this, it allocates the resources based upon the user's priority, right? It allocates the resources to each user. So a user priority can be set at a system level, group level, at a user level, at a session level, entire system level. So it takes a priority from highest priority at the lowest level here. So whatever I set at a session level, who overrides user, who overrides group, who overrides entire system. Now GRA does nothing. Whatever we learned in the previous slides, it just sets those numbers. Once GRA sets those numbers, Snippet Scheduler comes into picture and it gives rank to each and every snippet. Because by the time you come to scheduler, your query got already divided into snippets. Who divided that? Optimizer. Now for each snippet, snippet scheduler gives some rank. Okay, this query got divided into 10 different snippets. The other query got divided into 5 different snippets. I have total 95 snippets. So how do I rank them? This is the rank. And these are the GRA requirements it is coming up with. Now the same information depending upon the ranks is pushed to resource scheduler, but this is where your actual allocation happens. Based on snippet rank, schedules processor or disk resources. This is where the actual slice of resources is determined for each snippet. For example, if snippet A is weighted 100 and snippet B is weighted 25, B would get 1 second processor time and 1 disk block scanned for every 4 seconds of processor time and 4 disk blocks given to A. I'm saying that A is 4 times important than B, in other words. So for every 1 resource I assign to B, I have to assign 4 resources to A. Who takes care of it? The resource scheduler which is sitting on S plates will take care of it. The actual understanding of these schedulers is very easy. But the concept of groups, minimum percentage, maximum priority users is important here. Right. Going back again, you have 4 schedulers. Gatekeeper, which is open by default. Then GRA, the actual, the resources will be decided here, how much to allocate. Snippet, based upon GRA's input, it decides ranks. Based upon a ranks, it pushes to resource scheduler. This is where actual allocation happens. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, why do I need Gatekeeper Scheduler if it is open always? Right? If you look at this whole concept of GRA, snippet and resource and jobs we have discussed, I am prioritizing my users, saying that this user is critical to me. This user is low priority user. What if I cannot prioritize users like that? What if all users are same to me? So I work in a project, the entire business is important to me. What if I have to put such restriction like that, right? You remember we learned about a parameter called concurrent jobs. The maximum simultaneous we can have is 48. That means in previous scenarios, all 48s are coming into the same queue and I am giving them priority. I'm giving them allocating the resources. But what if all of these 48 are like long running jobs? What if the 48 that currently I'm running all runs for 2 hours at least? Your entire system will go to halt. Rest of business will go to halt. You see what I'm saying? I say that I allocate 48, right? But what if all these 48 are 48 1-hour jobs? There is nothing else runs on a system for 1 hour. Because you can't run 49th, right? Right? So if you anticipate or if you suspect such kind of scenarios happening in your system, you can enable Gatekeeper Scheduler saying that, okay, let me divide this 48 queue into multiple queues. It's a single queue right now. Whatever comes in, I am nowhere checking. I'm taking all in single queue. Instead of that, what I do is I divide the queue into multiple queues, saying that, so the numbers might not match up here. Less than 1 minute jobs, I'll allow 20. Jobs which are completing between 1 minute to 10 minutes, I allow only 5. Jobs which are going to complete between 10 minutes to 60 minutes, I allow 3. Jobs which are completing in more than 1 hour, I allow 1. So if a job which comes with a query estimation of like 2 hours, it will wait in the queue till this completes. You see what we are doing? So this actually reminds me the queues you have in big stores like Walmart. When you go to Walmart, what happens? There are a big billing queues, right? But there are separate queues saying that if you have only one item, come to this queue. If you are between
Yeah,
1 to 5 items, right?
yeah, less than 20 items,
Yeah,
there will be first counter, and then all are like default, like
yeah.
whatever you have.
If you define it at a much granular level, some kind of that technique. Why? Because if you just have one item or a two item, you can't wait with between 100 guys, right? So it won't be feasible. So this is like, see, this normal queue is like our IRCTC system. If you walk into our railway reservation system in India, right, Srinivas, what happens? We sit in a chairs. There are 4 counters. One after the another, people go to different counters. That's one way of handling things, right? Right? But the other way of handling it is if you are booking only one train ticket, if you are booking only 2 train tickets, if you are booking Tatkal ticket, just separate queues. So women have a separate queue like that. So depends. You need to see what is best for your business. So such kind of a techniques you can enable it in Gatekeeper. Right. So how do I decide it? How do I know the query completion time? Because by the time you come to scheduler, you have to pass optimizer. Optimizer knows the query estimates. These are estimates only. So if any query is coming up with estimate of less than 1 minute, it will go to this queue. Right. So long running queue, jobs will be in a separate queue altogether so that they won't affect your system. So how do we set those? We set those using these two parameters. Maximum per queue, what is the threshold? So 2531. Only I am allowing here 25 plus 29 jobs. I can match up these to 40. 20 less than 1. 5 10 to 10 minutes. 3 10 to 60 minutes. Greater than 60 minutes. I have 1. Now these are the rare scenarios, but still possible, right? Right. Before your job center itself, you are halting it. Before GRA schedulers takes the job and gives some priority, allocates say some resource addition, you stop it. Right. So that's pretty much about 4 different schedulers: Gatekeeper, GRA, Snippet, and Resource. there is not much you can do other than you just playing up with your groups or users. There is one more small concept called short query bias. So short query bias, as the name says, bias towards shortest queries. How do we define a query is short or tall? How do I decide a query is short? Means if a query estimation is less than 2 seconds by default, right? You can configure that, of course. By default, it's any query which is coming up with a runtime estimation of less than or equal to 2 seconds, it's considered as short queries. Just because you have long stuff running on the system, I don't want to affect my short queries, right? So that's why Netezza is partial towards short queries, saying that there are minimum resources allocated. For example, out of SPU has some memory, right? SBlade has, let's say, 16 GB memory in our twin fin scenario. Out of 16 GB, I'll always allocate 50 MB to short queries. If short queries are not there, then I will allocate this to someone else. But if short query is coming up, I have to free up the slot and allocate this memory for short query. It is like a woman reservation system, right? There is few governments follow, state governments follow like 30-35% reservation to women. If the seats are free under women section, the general competition can go for it, right? But it's like a bus man. So you know, 33% like front, like 4 seats or 5 seats are reserved for women. If there is no woman on the bus, I can go ahead and sit in that seat. But if someone is walking in, I have to get up and give the seat to the lady, right? That's the same thing here. Minimum slots are reserved so that someone running select count start from table should not take like 5 minutes or 2 minutes because system is busy, right? So just to help those less query, less time consuming queries, very less time consuming queries. Again, what worked in my environment might not work in your environment. So this is the ultimate thing while you do performance tuning. We haven't spoken on the options of optimizer and those things. We'll talk on that tomorrow. But workload management will be the ultimate thing. The other day, someone from here, one of the companies that I trained, one student called me and said that, Ravi, we given one of the users admin privilege, and that user comes from ETL, and that user is almost choking the system. We can't take out admin because it's audit requirement, and we can't let it go that way because it's choking entire system. But that is a ETL user, but that's ETL user is halting entire system whenever that ETL user comes in. Now how do we solve that problem, right? So we looked at various scenarios, but only the solution we found that point was restrict the number of resources. Let's create a new group, put that user in a different group, and make sure you don't give more than 40%. Minimum as 40, maximum as 90. When some other guys are coming up, yeah, it will scale down to 40%. If nothing else running, it will scale up to 90%. Because these things you can't solve it with like query tuning, SQL tuning. No, it's not nothing to do with that. It's an architectural decision. Right? It's important that you need to give priority to ETL, but at a month end, you can't expect business users to only log in at 8 a.m. They might come at 5 a.m. and finish up their work, or they might stay a little late. So you have to watch your system. There is no way, no other way. But what we have here is a list of various options like this. We just looked at terminology, right? This is a very small topic as an heads up for our next class. Statistics, collection of statistics. So we have so much of different varieties in other environments, such as you have basic stats, you have advanced stats, you have histograms, you have this and you have that. But here the concept is very, very simple. Again, you can collect stats at database level, table level, or column level. But the concept is very simple. Simple command, generate statistics, will generate stats on entire database. If you want on a specific table on student, the columns. So this will collect end-to-end statistics, basic to advanced. There is no separate concept for histograms or advanced stats, nothing. Everything is one command. In older releases, what we used to have something called generate express statistics, but both are same. No. Generate express statistics used to collect stats at a basic level, but now they merged both commands into single command to collect end-to-end statistics. But however, there is a concept called automatic statistics. What if I load a table with 10 million records and I forgot to take or collect statistics? What if I have done like 2 million deletes and I forgot to update stats on a table? So don't worry. Netezza system by default collects statistics for you whenever you do any of these operations. Here is a very important question. Create table as. This is a very good certification question too. When I create table as, it will automatically collect stats. All the statistics are collected, such as what are your row counts, minimum maximum values, null values, what are your advanced stats, dispersion details, and zone maps. These are all updated. When you do create table as, your statistics will be created automatically. Whenever I do insert, see if I do insert of like 10 million records and if I forget to collect statistics, automatic statistics will increment the row counts, minimum maximum values, and zone map details. But the advanced information like nulls and how the data is deviated, this, standard deviation, all that information won't be collected by default. When I do delete, nothing gets updated. Okay. When I do delete, nothing gets updated. Update, so these other things get updated. When I do groom table, only zone maps get updated. This table is very important. You have at least one certification question on this. Right? What is collected by default? But from conceptual point of view, this helps to minimize the error while optimizer is taking those calls. How do I make sure statistics on my database are accurate? Right? You don't have to worry about it. So there is a command called ng_gen_stats. When you see something with ng_, you see all the Netezza commands as ng followed by without underscore. But when you see something ng_, are shell scripts that Netezza is giving it to us for maintenance. So when I first started working on Oracle or any other environments, I found that if you want to find out list of existing sessions, I have to Google it to find out a script, or I have to write a SQL query on my own. But these are standard maintenance related queries in every environment, right? I want to convert SID to PID, PID to SID, right? Request ID from eBusiness request ID to SID. I want to find out how many sessions running against this module. What is the longest session? Which sessions are in it? These are the standard maintenance works, right? Why can't Oracle give a standard scripts? Why can't DB2 give a standard scripts? Right? As part of their release cycle. So that's exactly the point attacked by Netezza. So I know what are your basic maintenance works. So I'm giving you some shell scripts. When I say ls here, there are close to 200 plus shell scripts. If you want to find out DDL, for example, ngddl group. When I run this shell script, it just gets you the group definitions. These are all the group definitions. You remember there would be a group we have created, Srini group the other day we created, ETL group we created this morning, right? I don't have to go back and query the system tables. So this is where Netezza helped our day-to-day administration. Like that, one command we have is ng_gen_stats. So this is one place to start, man. So these scripts you can start understanding it, so that you'll understand the internals, right? What are the tables we are querying? So ng_gen_stats. When I say -info, when I say Srini, it will get you the statistics of this Srini database. We don't have Srini database here. We have it. Why it's taking a long time? Yeah, it's taking somehow the long time, but what it shows is it goes to each and every table within this database and shows you at the last column that whether the stats are up to date. If you think stats are not up to date, you can just simply run ng_gen_stats database name. It will go ahead to each and every table where stats are not there and collect the statistics. So along with these statistics that we collect on a regular basis, we also have some operational level statistics. You can't help with this, you can't modify this, but you can affect this. So you can see that information using ng_stats. So this is what I am talking about. Under Srini database, this is empty table. Generate stats on T1. That's what it is saying. So stats on T1 table are not there. So I have to say generate statistics on T1. So you get a report like this. So if I run this again, I should see here OK for T1 table. Yeah, it says that full statistics are okay, but it's asking me to run statistics for T2 table. Right, like that. We can run all that entire database level in one shot by just saying that ng_gen_stats followed by database name. Right, what I'm talking about here is an operational stats. What are these operational stats? For example, when I say ng_stats, it tells you information about your system. This is a command that tells you information about your system. Right, number of hardware components you have. Right, so this ng_stats has much bigger information. Right, when I say ng_stats -hc list types, so you can see much bigger information using ng_stats. For example, when I say ng_stats -hc show ng_stats show -type, yeah, when I say ng-stats show hyphen type dbms, it will show instance level statistics saying that I have 17 databases, 10 groups, 6 users, 20 schemas, 99 tables. Similarly, I talk about SPU. It talks about how much memory available at SPU. You see the kind of information it is getting you. These are operational statistics, like how many databases you have, right? How many users you have, what is your SPU. I have only one S-blade. The S-blade memory is this much, and this is how much it is used so far. Similarly, you can get host level information. We have it for host level information. We so far spoke about I have these many S-blades, these many disks, but we have never spoken on how many CPUs we have itself on host, right? Netezza host is nothing but a Linux box, right? How many CPUs we have there? So this tells you that. This tells you that. Number of CPUs is 4. I have 7 file systems. So this is a memory we have. At host level, you see what I'm saying? Right. Sometimes people ask me that. I remember in one of the interviews. So we so far spoke about, right, these many disks I have. Each disk is 1 terabyte. But how much is the space available on host? Right. So that information you can see it using these operational statistics. So that's what I try to show you here. ng-stats, what are all the various ways you can use this ng-stat? You can get table information, SPU information, everything. Operational. These are the things that you can just see, man, nothing else you can do. If you want to increase number of databases, you have to add the number of databases, right? That's it. All right.
Ravi, I
Yeah.
have a question actually, not related to the statistics only, but not operational statistics. So in one of the table you said like when we delete, automatically it won't capture it won't update the statistics, right?
Yeah, when we delete it,
When
it
we,
will update, right?
yeah, but technically we need that, right? Because if you are deleting more data, like in a table like 100,000 rows, whatever it is, if we delete, it actually helps me in choosing a better plan, right? In case if there is something that optimizer decides.
Right. So, but these are automatic statistics. I'm saying that we don't collect statistics, but while deleting, they are not doing that overhead. So,
Okay.
while deleting, they are assuming that But why? You can ask me that. But how frequently you delete from data warehouses?
Yeah, very less.
Very less. So they don't want to have that maybe that extra overhead. That's a good point. Yeah. But very rare, right? We delete.
Yeah. Basically, we do soft deletes more than, in
Well,
fact, we never delete.
mostly on temporary tables.
Yeah, staging or something like that. But again, that we do truncate, not deletes, right? Most of the times.
Right. All right. So we'll talk about optimizer